Welcome to Exposed. Thank you so much for joining me today. It truly does my heart good to have you here with me. So come on in. I'm lifelogist April Rose. And before we start, I'm going to take an honestly pause today. Some of you know that posting videos is new to me, and I want to make sure that my subscribers and my followers are getting the best experience possible for my videos. So periodically, I'll be doing a pulse check just to make sure that that's happening. So I'm asking today for you to give me your opinions in the comments. If you would get more out of the weekly videos being on Facebook Live, or if you're just fine with the recorded videos being here, please let me know. Also, I'm asking that you post your thoughts in the comments on how this and other videos have helped you, or how you feel you could have benefited more from my content if I had added more to it. And just thank you in advance for doing that. I really appreciate you guys. But now that that's out of the way, let's jump right into today's topic. And the reason I chose today's topic is because so many of us are sitting on the gifts that we've been blessed with, all because of this one thing: self-doubt. So today we're talking about wiping out self-doubt. Now, just like everything else, self-doubt has a root. Self-doubt is possibly one of the most prevalent factors in paralyzing us from achieving our greatness. And self-doubt is a funny beast too, because other people can usually see your beautiful gifts no matter how hard you try to hide them. But for some reason, I'm not sure if it's because they are not equipped to help us, if they are hating on our possibility for success, or if they just don't want to offend us. But either way, they don't usually say anything of substance about it to us. I mean, so many people have been mad at me over the years because they felt like I wasn't tapping into my potential. But nobody said anything to me about it until recently. And I have one friend who was brave enough to tell me how it infuriated her. Like, it was making her so angry. But by this time, I'd already started working on myself and had realized there were so many weed roots planted in my soil that my potential was being choked out. And if that confused you, go back and watch my video, Your Best Year Yet, The Root Cause, and then you'll get it. But anywho, what might have happened if somebody had said something to me years ago? What would have happened if my mother would have pushed me harder and didn't accept my excuses? What if somebody had discovered the weeds that were choking the life out of my gifts and had been willing to help me do some tilling? I really can't say, but I can say that I believe I had to carry this burden around for so long in order to be able to help somebody else avoid falling into the same ditch. So let's dig in and rip these roots up. All right? The first step in wiping out self-doubt is getting to know yourself. Self-awareness is one of our greatest gifts, and it's free. It allows you to know your strongest points, and it also allows you to get to a place where you're comfortable enough to embrace your flaws. We're all flawed in some way or another, so let's start there. Because I think part of the reason we struggle with embracing our flaws is because we feel like we need to measure up. But measure up to who? And measure up to what? I mean, if we really put things into perspective, Yes, my flaws are probably different from yours, and your flaws are most likely different from mine. But and however, that doesn't change the fact that we're both flawed, right? Now, the flip side of that coin is, who is the captain of determining what a flaw is and what a flaw is not? For instance, some people think that a gap in your teeth is a flaw, while some people, including me, think that a gap in your teeth is the bomb.com. So I guess what I'm saying is that your flaws are only your flaws because you recognize them as such, right? It pretty much doesn't matter what other people think your flaws are because you are not responsible for making them feel good about you. You're only responsible for feeling good about yourself. So figure out what they are to you. Figure out what your flaws are to you. Then I'm going to suggest that you stand in the mirror every day, tell yourself how beautiful you are. Every day. Yes, I mean that, every single day. Now, this is something that I learned from an old coworker of mine, and it's kind of a long story. But the short version is that she walked into my job and said, I want you to stand in the mirror and tell yourself you're beautiful every day. Now, we didn't work in the same building, and I barely even knew her. So naturally, I'm looking at her like she's crazy because I had self-esteem. So I thought. But, I mean, I was a little offended by it. In hindsight, maybe she thought I wasn't beautiful. I don't know. But her delivery at the time seemed so genuine and like it was coming from a good place. So I began to do it. Changed my life. Changed my perception. And also revealed to me that my self-esteem wasn't as high as I actually thought it was. So, back to you. After you tell yourself that you love yourself, tell yourself how much you love each and every one of your flaws. Now, in the beginning, you're not going to mean it. They're going to be empty words. But I promise you, if you keep doing it, over time, you're going to begin to love your flaws. Like I love this scar on my forehead, this chipped tooth from kindergarten, all of my fluffing, and this ridiculously raspy voice. And once you begin to embrace your flaws, you can apply simple logic. Okay? If you don't like something, you have two choices. Accept it or commit to change it. Bottom line. Alright. We had to tackle the flaws first because they're always in the forefront. If somebody asks you what your flaws are, you could probably rattle them off like the words to your favorite song. But if somebody asks you what your strengths are, you probably pause and sound more like a Buddhist chanting. So what are your strengths? Stop. I don't mean your professional skills. I am not trying to hire you, boo. And I definitely don't mean your outward appearance. People are paying to be beautiful nowadays, so that doesn't count. And of course, that will fade eventually. I mean, in you as a being, what is special about you? What makes genuine people, and notice I said genuine people, what makes them want to befriend you? What makes them want to get to know you better, be more like you, and stick around for extended periods of time, and not the superficial stuff. Please, not the superficial stuff. And if you don't know the answer, and even if you do, I would suggest that you take some quiet time to yourself to figure out what your strengths are. There's always at least one that we overlooked, and we can add to the list. So discover your strengths, recite your strengths, be your strengths until your strengths become you. And I do mean both definitions of become you. All right. Next, now that you know your strengths, illuminate your strengths. This is January. December was a month of self for me. I purposely centered the whole month around self-focus, self-actualization, self-discovery, self-awareness, self-improvement, self-esteem building, self-whatever you name it. I was into it, okay? And yes, I was unapologetic about it. Unapologetically all about self for 31 days. And some of the things I discovered about myself were very interesting and gratifying. But there were some other things revealed to me that were heartbreaking and overwhelming. Now, the latter feelings were because of some things I had to tackle by tearing down a foundation inadvertently built by other people in my life from as far back as when I was 5 years old. And then I rebuilt my foundation, focusing on my strengths, because I was determined that I was going into the new year revealing a brand new April Rose. Now, the process itself was grueling and very painful. I can't tell you how many tears I cried. But it was the greatest gift I've ever given to myself. And if you want to know how to do this, you can watch that same video I mentioned earlier, Your Best Year Yet, The Root Cause, on my YouTube channel, Exposed with April Rose. And be sure to subscribe, because missing one video can have me sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher to you. Anyway, as I rebuilt my foundation, I made it a point to illuminate my strengths. So January became a month of what I call brand shaping. See, I have to shape my brand before I can actually build it. So I made a branding board, and it's very similar to a vision board. Most of you should know what a vision board is, but this branding board focuses solely on me and my persona. It carves out what greatness I have inside of me and details those things that I want other people to see in me. See, I'm the author of who people see when they get to know me, when they see me, and so are you. You know, we all love to talk about ourselves, but the truth of the matter is most of the talking we do about ourselves is just surface. And many of us don't really know ourselves, partly because we've bended, molded, and adapted so much of who we truly are to fit into these preconceived notions of the world and to be what we think the other people around us need from us. But another reason is because we don't usually purposely take the time to get to know ourselves. And we're ever evolving, but there are some things in us that will never change, and we have ignored some of those things for so long that we forgot that they're there. And we're adaptive creatures, so we do what we feel we need to do in order to survive in the moment. But what did you really love when you were an innocent little boy or girl? When you knew no limitations? Who were you back then? How have your views changed since then based on the limitations other people or life circumstances have forced on you? I'm going to give you an example. As a little girl, I was an ambivert. And in case you don't know what that is, and I only say that because I actually just found out what it is myself. But an ambivert is a person who is an equal mix of extrovert and introvert. So I was an ambivert, and I was like Michael Jackson, a lover, not a fighter. Plus, our mom raised us, not to be violent. So in elementary school, I was bullied. The bullying made me become very cautious of people, and eventually afraid of certain people who had a reputation of being badasses. So this turned me into a complete introvert. I didn't really want to be around people. I didn't want to get to know anybody or be social at all if I could help it. And I remember a couple years later, a new family moved into our neighborhood, and there were 3 girls in the family, and they were all around my age. And they befriended me pretty quickly, thank God, because they looked like the kind of girls you just didn't want to mess with. And I didn't need one more kid to be afraid of. And I will never forget Tanya, Keena, and Mookie. That was their names, Mookie the baby girl. And if y'all are out there and y'all see this video, post a comment. I miss y'all. Alright, anyway. They knew how to fight, okay? And strategically, too. Until then, I had been winging it. I hadn't lost any fights. But there was always that fear in the back of my head that I would, because honestly, I was lucking up in my fighting. Well, my new friends, Tanya, Keena, and Mookie, started to teach me how to fight strategically. And before I knew it, my confidence was coming back. And I was slowly making friends and becoming less and less fearful. My extrovert part of me was coming back. But it got to a point where I would punch you in your face. Quick. And I even bragged about that for years. Like, I don't do all that arguing. I'm just going to punch you in your face. Now, here I am, this girl who is a lover, not a fighter, whose mother taught her to be nonviolent, out here punching people in the face. Who are you? Will the real April Rose please stand up? And I would tell you how many years I was like this, but then I'd be letting you in on my little secret that I'm not really 21. But let's just suffice it to say that it's probably been about 2 years maybe since I decided that I won't punch anybody in the face unless they put their hands on me, of course. But see how I allowed life circumstances and other people's actions to force me to adapt into somebody that I wasn't. And this can happen in so many scenarios. We stay at a job we hate, or is not a part of our divine purpose because the pay is good. Our parents expect us to be this or do that. Our significant others only like to do this, or they don't like to do that, so we don't do it even though we love it. Friends are not interested in the things that you're interested in, so you don't take advantage of it because you don't want to do it alone. Or even worse, they love something that you hate, but you go with them just to appease them or to fit in. So what I'm saying is, do some inventory. Who are you really? Do you show up as that person every single day in every single way, or have you morphed into somebody else in certain situations in order to people please? And once you remember who you were, couple that with your strengths. Wonder Twin powers activate, illuminate. All right? Next, know your values, and don't just know them, but trust them. So know your values and trust them. We've all heard the saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I like to say, whatever you stand for, be willing to go down for. Now, by no means am I suggesting that you shouldn't be open-minded, but I am suggesting that you are really clear about what matters to you most and what you truly value. Knowing this at all times is going to help to guide you in decision making and making decisions you won't feel bad about sticking by. And even if you do make a wrong decision, you'll know you made it based on what is important to you and not frivolously because you were in a hurry or based on somebody else's values that don't align with yours. You also won't beat yourself up and begin to develop self-doubt because of one wrong decision. If I value security and somebody asks me to quit my job and give them my life savings to make $1 million and I only have 60 seconds to make a decision, I know my decision is not to do that. Why? Because it'll threaten my security and I value security. But if someone shows me solid proof that a stock is booming and people are securing their futures by investing in it, I'll probably decide to take a small part of my savings and invest it in the stock. If that stock starts to plummet, I won't be happy, but it won't attack my confidence, nor will I beat myself up because I made the decision on what I value, which is security. So take some time to get really clear about at least the top 5 things you value most. You may have more than 5, and that's fine. But knowing this will give you the confidence you need to conquer self-doubt in your decision making. Now, our values change during our lifetime. When I was 18, I valued finding a cute boy to date. In my 20s, I valued having fun and caring for my children. In my 30s, I valued advancing in my career and having fancy things. But now I value security, walking in my purpose, and contributing to making the world a better place. Of course, I value more than those things, but that's just a list of a few values I've had, just to give you a picture of how our values change. So check in on those values periodically to make sure that your decisions and everything is still lining up with what you really value. And by the way, I'm still 21. All right. Identify and dig up not enough seeds. Ugh. Many times our self-doubt comes from seeds that have been sown by others, and sometimes they come from seeds of failures in life that we didn't learn lessons from. So let's start with other people's seeds. Can you remember the first time somebody told you that you couldn't do something? Or a time when someone said you weren't pretty enough, you were too dark, you were too light, you weren't smart enough, you simply weren't good enough. I am not going to waste my time or your time telling you about all the times people have told me these kind of things, because if I did, this video would be 10,080 seconds long. but boy, those not enough seeds are some of the most robust seeds. They are strong and they last a lifetime unless we purposely destroy them. So when people sow these kinds of seeds, they're usually sowing them from a place of envy because they feel that they are not enough. They're usually born out of a place of despondency, desperation, or misery. And we all know what they say misery loves. So I'm going to ask you to get resolute and very vigilant. I'm going to ask you to never, ever, ever eat at the not enough table again. Don't sit there. Don't pull out the chair. Don't go in the kitchen. As a matter of fact, don't even show up to the house. Remember the things. Go back. That you were told that you couldn't do. Remember the not enough seeds that have been sown and figure out why you believed it in your subconscious. Because even though we reject things consciously on the surface, a lot of times we accept it in our subconscious and we don't even know what's going on. So recollect some of the things you have missed out on because not enough was parked in your subconscious. And most importantly, identify the lie. Why was it a lie? How can you counter it? What are some other scenarios that proved it was a lie? And who do you have things in common with who was enough? So if I say you're not enough because you're dark skinned, who was enough who was dark skinned? Identify the lie, okay? And once you know the lie, I want you to send it back to the pit of hell from whence it came. I want you to despise that seed so much that you will never, ever allow it in your space again. You are enough. You are good enough. You are smart enough. And you can do anything you put your mind to. And I'm going to put a link to the video in the comments, to prove it to you, okay? We're moving on. Face the facts in your failures. Face the facts in your failures. All right. Failures usually, because it can be more, but usually have one of two main results. Failures will normally either make you feel incapable or make you wiser. Now, there are lessons in every single failure, both small and large. But our biggest failure is the failure to grasp the lessons each failure presents. So, When we don't take the time to grasp the lessons in our failures, that's when we begin to feel incapable. That is when self-doubt begins to creep in or begins to increase. See, it doesn't mean that you're incapable just because you failed. Quite the opposite. Actually, the fact that you tried makes you capable. But when you commit your lessons from the failure to memory, you're going to be so much more capable, so much more prepared, and so much more likely not to fail the next time. When you grasp the lessons from any failure, you'll become so much better for it. So, what are some things that what are some things that did not go the way you planned them? How could you have possibly changed the outcome? Now, I'm going to give you a very personal example, and just know 99% of the examples I give you guys here on Exposed are unfortunately straight from the life of April Rose. I mean, I've been a guinea pig in many situations, but I don't mind because I get to help you guys. Okay, so imagine your spouse or significant other cheats on you. This is not what you planned to happen. And so some might look at this as a failure. And even though you had no control over that person's actions, now honestly, pause. This is the predicament I was in when I first started my journey on self-awareness. So I was like, I will take responsibility for getting into a relationship with a man who had shown me signs that he might be dishonest. But that's as far as I'm going. That's all the responsibility I'm taking, right? So lately, you all know I've been immersing myself in self-awareness, which made me get real and open my eyes to know that there are many more lessons from this scenario for me. And I'm not only responsible for getting into a relationship with a person who doesn't have the capacity to be faithful, I'm also responsible for not setting certain boundaries in the beginning, for not immediately making him suffer more consequences when he first slipped up, for not valuing myself enough, and I can go on and on. But these things I mentioned have taught me, because I grasped the lesson, that I want a mate who mirrors me, and to pick a mate based on what I value the most. Not the frivolous things that won't matter 10 years from now. He might be funny and have swagger, but will he offer me emotional support and help me change the world for the better and be faithful to me? I have learned to set boundaries in the beginning, right, before it gets out of hand, and to enforce harsh consequences if the boundaries are ever crossed. I mean, what I can say is that I learned these lessons this time. See, I've had these things happen to me in the past also, but I ignored the lessons. This is how I've gone around in this pattern over and over again. But now that I've got the lesson, I'm confident in my choice in a mate because I am applying what I've learned when I'm choosing. So, learn your lessons and apply your lessons to reduce the risk of failing next time, and to also increase your confidence, reduce your self-doubt in your decision making. Okay? This is probably my favorite one. Celebrate your successes. My therapist, yes, I have a therapist. Get you one. They're so refreshing. Anyway, she asked me one day if I ever celebrate my accomplishments. And after carefully thinking about it, I told her, I really don't. So she gave me one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever had. She told me that she cleans her house every Saturday. So she'll clean a small corner of her living room. And then she sits on the sofa with a cup of coffee and a cigarette and admires her work for about 10 minutes. And then she does another corner and she sits for 10 more minutes, focusing on what a great job she's done. And then she rinses and repeats until all her cleaning is done. I thought that was the most awesome thing in the world, because I never stop and go, oh, this is beautiful. You did this. I don't do that, and most of us don't. So You may not have a full 10 minutes to celebrate each and every one of your accomplishments throughout the day, but pause for 60 seconds, if not 2 minutes, whatever, and take it in. Every time you accomplish a goal, no matter how big or small, pause and pat yourself on the back. And soon you'll begin to see your capabilities. And before you know it, you'll be believing that you can do anything. And you'll want to do it too, because now you know you'll be appreciated by you. Know yourself, accept yourself, love yourself, trust yourself, continue to improve yourself, and most importantly, celebrate yourself. This is how you wipe out self-doubt. All right, guys. Be sure to subscribe, comment, like, and share. Until next time, get real, get healed, and keep it real.